All right, this is Chris with Syracuse Music Collective. I have on the line one of the original Misfits, Mr. Jim. How you doing, Jim?
Good. How are you, Chris?
Seasonably very well up here. We had a record high today up in here in Syracuse, for weather-wise, but I imagine that's nothing compared to down south, right?
Yeah, well, it's been a nice winter down here. Yeah.
I lived in Miami for a couple of years when I was in college, so 60 down there is like freezing cold. Up here, it's barbecue weather.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I do appreciate taking the time to talk with me. So let's get right at it here. Now, why don't you give a little bit of your background? Musically growing up. A little bit. Kind of give us a picture of what it was like. Growing up in the area. Lodi and where the band started.
Well, Lodi was full of musicians, really. There were quite a few, like high school age bands, and so we knew a lot of musicians back then.
Right. And from my experience, I did visit it, a couple weeks back. It seems like a pretty, it's like a small town, but it has a lot of like different interesting spots, and a lot of diversity in there. Was it always like that?
Yeah, we had quite a few different people, yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, and you mentioned there's a lot of high school type bands, and then so how did you get introduced to Misfits, and how did you get involved with them?
Well, it's basically well, so and so wants to jam. Let's jam, put something together. I was in I don't know how many different bands when I was a kid. In some with Glenn, and some with Jerry, not Jerry, the other Jerry Byers, but
right.
Yeah, well, there must have been 25 or 30 different guitar players, drummers, bass players, singers.
Oh man.
So eventually, everybody ended up jamming with each other.
At one point or another in time, right?
Correct. Yeah. Not all at once. No. Yeah.
No. Oh, that'd been interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And given the time frame and everything, it sounds pretty similar to even up here. When I was in high school, there was a bunch of us that kind of were like interchangeable into different garage bands, as we would call it, and
right.
And then some ended up just working better together, and some of them just we didn't. So and it was no hard feelings. Just we just knew who we could work with. So
exactly. Right. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Now if you could you describe like the early days of the Misfits? Let's take it back. Manny had probably just left. You came in, and the band in itself was still very in its like infancy, very like starting to really forge their way. How would you describe like from the moment he left and then you stepped in, how it was going?
Well, I had known Glenn from jamming with him a lot in other bands. I was in a cover band with him before the Misfits, actually.
Okay.
So I can't speak for him, but he probably, when Manny left, he probably said, "Well, I know Jim, let's give him a call," that kind of thing,
Oh, nice. And when you started, going out and doing shows. What were the early shows, live shows like for you?
Oh, they were a lot of fun. I think the first time we played, was at Max's, if I'm not mistaken. It was a long time ago. But we played a lot of smaller gigs also. But most of the gigs we played in New York were at Max's, Kansas City.
Right. And and speaking of gigs, what was your favorite gig or favorite memory from playing live, and why?
It's kind of hard to pick out one.
Oh, you could say a couple. It's cool.
Maybe like the first time we played. I don't think people realized what they were going to hear. I guess that's a good way to put it.
They didn't know what was coming at them, basically.
Yeah. They call it like a punk rock scene back then.
Mm-hmm.
But there weren't a whole lot of hardcore bands like us, you know.
Right.
We were a little more hardcore than a lot of the bands, I think, back then.
Yeah, that'd definitely be safe to say. I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
And what was your favorite song to play live, or what was even your favorite song to play, whether it was live or one that you recorded, and if there's a special meaning to that?
Well, I mean, I liked all of them. Probably Teenagers from Mars. I always enjoyed that.
Nice.
Bullet was good to play, but it was tough.
Actually, it's funny because I remember the band in college I was in. We'd do an occasional. We'd throw in a random cover. And one of them was Bullet. I mean, I didn't play drums. I played bass. So I think I had it a little bit easier than our drummer did. Truth be told.
Well,
so yeah, it is definitely an intense song. I could definitely see that.
Yeah. It was my own fault because that's the way I recorded it, so that's the way I had to play it every time.
I imagine your arms were in great shape by the end of that one.
Yeah.
So and, you did some recording with them. Static Age and a couple of the 7 inches. I mean, is there anything you recall? Any little interesting tidbits or stories from even recording them? I mean,
Well, I mean, we did the whole thing. I don't know. I think it was in about 10 days. I mean, I don't know if any of like that type of stuff that went down. We laid down basically the basic tracks, and then Glenn put his vocals on it. There's very few overdubs.
Oh, nice.
That I recall anyway. I mean, I did one little overdub on it on the beginning of Return of the Fly. Everything else was live.
Oh, cool. All right. Now, I asked this question to another, I like asking it to those who were, in the bands back in the punk bands back in that era, in its heyday, when it was really, really, getting the upswing, in your words, what would you describe what punk meant for you back then?
Well, I mean, it was real music. It was the whole landscape of music back then, and I was in the record business at the time also. It was all corporate stuff, just kind of like more contrived type stuff put together to sell rather than from the heart.
Right.
So that's basically why we all turned to punk, because we wanted to hear real music again.
It's almost like it was those who were, the bands were making a statement, basically, instead of, just rolling with whatever was being sold to,
exactly.
people. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like that, a statement.
Keep it more minimal, keep it more honest,
All right. And it's funny because I missed that era because, by the time, I was getting into music as a young kid, the heyday of punk was trying, to wind down. And then for me, it was kind of like how I felt with New York hardcore, because it was literally a bunch of my buddies all went on to, I jammed with them. I didn't, stick around, but they ended up going into bigger bands. But it was kind of like making a statement too, and it was, I can imagine the feelings would be similar,
Oh no, exactly.
So
it just kept extending itself, and
yep.
Of course you always have to move on to the next thing.
Yep.
As long as the spirit's there, it's that's the most important thing, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Now here's one of this question I like to ask just to see what what the response is. Now, when you take it back to the time when you're in the Misfits and you're in that moment, it's happening, it's all happening. At any point, I mean, can you ever imagine that here we are almost 40 years later, Misfits have become such a cult icon and a mass influence, and would you ever imagine that as a teenager going, yeah, 40 years later, this is going to be, everybody's going to know who this is, all this is.
If somebody would have said that to me, I would have told them they were full of shit. I had no clue whatsoever, believe me. And you know, it did take a while too, quite honestly. I mean, you know, there was, you know, 10 or 15 years where, you know, you didn't hear anything, and all of a sudden I started, you know, hearing from people and stuff. Oh, you guys are popular again, you know, like that kind of stuff. So I'm sure it's got a lot to do with what they did later too after I left. But, you know.
I mean, I don't know. I think it speaks in volumes because here I am. You know, I'm 40 years old, and it's like I grew. You know, I got into the band when I was 12, and you know, and it still means a lot. And now I get to talk to, you know, like you and other members in A-Room, so it's kind of like that. You know, like wow, you know, for me, anyways.
Yeah. Those old guys are still alive. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm glad, obviously. Now, speaking of, you know, music, and is there any current projects you're working on or anything you're doing currently?
Right at this second, I'm kind of, I have a friend of mine who's a guitar player and a singer. We're kind of getting ready to start working on a little like blues type thing.
Oh, nice.
Not traditional though. It's going to be, you know,
right,
a little crazier. And I've done a couple of things in the last, you know, 7 or 8 years. I had a instrumental surf band. I had a garage band. So yeah, I've been keeping busy.
Oh, very good, very cool. Yeah, you know, kind of wrapping up here. I mean, is there any final thoughts, or you know, being that you know your work has influenced other aspiring musicians and fans, you know, everywhere? I mean, is there anything you know you wanted? Any thoughts or advice?
Well, you know, advice from me is probably not a good thing because, you know, I always did stuff just by, you know, on the tip of my heels, you know. But, you know, I mean, I still, to this day, I do appreciate it when people, you know, want to contact me and stuff. And you know, it's nice, you know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, you know, you know, again, you know, thank you so much for, you know, taking the time to, you know, talk with me. You know, it really does mean a lot to me, you know, as, you know, being a fan for so many years and then, you know, getting the opportunity to, you know, just chat with you.
Yeah, that's great. Mm-hmm.
And, you know, again, thank you for your time, and, you know, hopefully we'll see more things from you in the future.
Yeah, hopefully, keep working.
All right.